Okay, hello and welcome to the weekly Tuesday afternoon live stream. I normally do these with Angie, but she's uh, had something come up, so she's not going to be here today. But I figured I'd still go live. So if you are new here, welcome. And if you are returning here, welcome. So these live streams are something that we do, or at least we try to do every Tuesday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and they run for about an hour. And it's just a place for people to ask questions, to get support, uh, yeah, to just kind of be together. So there is no such thing as a bad question or a stupid question. Um, Everybody here is at all different places of healing and understanding. So we just encourage you to share whatever's on your mind and if there's anything that we can help with. Mystique is here. Crystal is here. UNA is here. Hello, hello. How is everybody doing this week? Lots of stress, I think, for a lot of different people with school starting and kind of COVID cases going up and lots of uncertainty in the world. Have you found that this is kind of your new normal, living with COVID? Or are you doing, I guess, how is everybody doing with anxiety and stress regarding this? Oh, UNA says, I just wanted to clear up any misunderstandings. I'm a girl, not a boy. Yes, I could tell that you were a girl. So, okay. Yeah, Mystique is saying, yeah, the stress is unreal. Mike is here. What is there anything in particular that's causing you more stress than usual, or in what ways are you experiencing levels of unreal stress? If you're comfortable sharing, of course. And oh, that's cute. Giggleberry Juice says, hello, everyone. I'm new here. Well, welcome. We're glad you found your way here. Mona Lisa says, I'm trying to invent new coping strategies. Okay, so maybe we could talk about coping strategies a little bit today and uh, kind of what has been working for you guys as far as coping strategies. And maybe too, what hasn't been working. Different things work for different people. And just because a coping strategy is not working for you doesn't mean that the problem is you, that you're somehow not trying hard enough or that you're not doing it right. Um, Different people process stress and anxiety in different ways. Some people need to go run it out, and some people need to be still and meditate. And for those people that need to be active and just kind of burn off that extra energy, sitting still and meditating is absolutely just torture for them. So it's all about knowing yourself. Yeah, Sue says she's struggling with making the choice of sending kids to school or homeschooling. Yes, I think a lot of parents are in that boat, and that's a really difficult decision, especially for parents that have to work. And yeah, there's just lots of factors at play. Mona Lisa says that she's new. Well, welcome. Welcome, welcome. Mystique says, I'm divorcing a covert narcissist during COVID, and I'm isolated and need to move. I'm stressing about the kids going back to school because I'm high risk. Yes, that is a lot. You have a lot going on, and it's, kind of at every angle. So I don't blame you for really struggling with stress. Has there been anything that you've been doing that's been helping to kind of to process the stress, because there are, normally in like a normal stressful situation, there's certain things that we have control over, and then there's certain things we don't. And I think that's been the challenge with all of this COVID stuff, is there's a lot that is unknown and there's a lot that we don't have control over. Um, it's really difficult to fight an invisible enemy, and that can understandably create a lot of anxiety for a lot of people. Yeah, Mona Lisa. Okay, those are some great ideas. Says getting rid of toxic people, meditation, aromatherapy. I had to disassociate from my destructive narcissistic sister and father. Yes. Wow. It sounds like you've really been just on a roll. Those are all wonderful things. And it does help to kind of do a house cleaning of who is in our inner circle, and is this the spot in which they belong, or do they belong further out? I think it's a good to kind of do to at least think about this on, at a minimum, an annual basis, kind of a spring cleaning of sorts, because it's so easy to get kind of stuck in our habits of interacting with certain people, thinking, oh, well, I just have known this person for 20 years and they're in your inner circle. But then the reality is you have nothing in common with them. And the time together is more oftentimes leads to more disagreements and fighting and negativity and all kinds of things than it does to anything that's constructive or enjoyable. So kind of reevaluating, is this still the right circle for this person at this point in my life? And of course, it doesn't have to be making them bad or wrong or anything. There's no judgment here. It's just about kind of noticing, being fully aware and acknowledging where you are in your life and what's working for you and what's not, and what are some changes that need to be made. And with that goes with kind of reshuffling of expectations. So it can be really eye-opening. So let's say you do have a person that's been in your life for a long time and you think, oh yeah, this person is my really close friend. And then you realize you're doing this kind of inventory of your inner circle, and then you realize, oh my gosh, I don't actually talk to this person that much anymore. And I still like them, but maybe they're calling you less and less. And so we're still getting hurt because in our mind, we still have this idea of, oh, I'm close friends with this person. But, life has happened, time has happened. And the reality is maybe they're in more of like an acquaintance uh, level or an acquaintance circle. And so realizing that it can be sad, but it can also create a lot of peace, because then you're accepting the situation and the dynamic for what it is. And if you want to work towards things being different than they are, then you're at least acknowledging it clearly. So if you, instead of continually having your feelings hurt, oh, this person, I thought we were really great friends, but the reality is there hasn't been much of a friendship there for quite a while. You're now making the shift of, oh my gosh, somehow, somewhere along the line, this friendship slipped into the acquaintance zone. And I really value this person and their friendship, and we still have a ton of stuff in common. I need to really put some more energy back into that and get things back to, moving in the direction of my inner circle. So, oh, well, thank you, Mystique. She says, listening to your videos have helped me keep sane. LOL. Well, I'm glad. I'm glad they could do that for you. Oh, I like that, Elaine. She says, I say to a narcissist, your perception of me is none of my business. Yes. And really, that goes across the board for even if they're not a narcissist. Other people's perceptions of us, uh, they're going to perceive us however they're going to perceive us. And we can, if it's hurtful or hateful or just flat out unhelpful or, uh, any of that, we we can we don't have to accept their perception of us. So we can, and if there is some truth to it, because sometimes truth can be difficult to hear. So somebody's saying, "Gosh, you sure?" I don't know. Um, I don't whatever it might be, right? Some really not so constructive criticism, where somebody points something out, like that's their perception. If there's an element of truth in that, then it can be worth, of course, taking a few steps back and kind of reflecting upon that. But again, we don't have to let other people's perceptions negatively impact our self-worth. And here's what's interesting too, is the healthier relationship we have with ourself, the the more comfortable we are with the truth. So, and we also tend to not accept or even be rattled by things that we don't think are somewhat true. So, for example, if somebody were to tell me, "Oh, Dana, um, boy, that's, you know, you, um, you're so tall and you're so blonde and uh, you are so good with technology." I'm trying to think of things that are like totally not me. Uh, and, um, you just, you're just really, really selfish. None of those things I think adequately describe me. And so because of that, I don't internalize it. I just kind of think, well, that's interesting that you perceive me that way. I might ask if I valued that person's opinion at other times. And if they were to say, wow, that's really selfish or that's really self-absorbed of you or whatever it might be, uh, I might ask for further, like, well, oh, well, what am I doing that's making you feel that way? Or can you elaborate? And then I might explore it. But if it's only when I think things tend to strike a chord with us that we actually get like emotionally reactive. So it can be interesting. And it's difficult, but it can be interesting to try to stay observant of your emotional response to the way different ways people interact with you and kind of what strikes a chord with you. Because generally the things that strike a chord, these are more often than not wounds that need to be resolved or some sort of changes that we need to make. Okay, so let me scroll up here. Mona Lisa says, I've been exercising and developing better eating habits. I started reading again, watching less CNN. Yes, these are all fantastic ideas. That especially the watching less CNN, there's that kind of, and it can be difficult for avid news watchers out there to limit the amount of news that they're intaking because it can feel irresponsible, right? It can feel like, well, I don't want to be disconnected from what's going on in the world, and if I were to do that, then I'm somehow putting myself or my family at risk, and it creates this sense of anxiety and panic if we don't watch it. And so, but then if we are watching it all the time, it also creating a sense of anxiety and panic, and um, finding that line of, okay, you know what? I've got the information I need, um, and I can turn this off now. Just really setting limits can tremendously help if a person's struggling with stress and anxiety. It's one of the best things I ever did for myself, and it was kind of by accident, was to start watching less, um, less regular TV or less news. And so now I'm very selective about when I do watch, well, of course, now there's Netflix and things, right? So when I do watch shows, it's what I want to watch. And if I do turn on the news, it's intentional to turn on the news to get the news. or to go to certain websites, and then I'm done. And same with exercising, developing better eating habits. I love all that. Reading again. Missouri Cowboys here. Hello. Jazzy says hi from Germany. JJ says, whoa, what? It's Tuesday, 10:44 a.m. Hello. Yes. Yes. So yeah, the reason I'm going live today, because normally Angie and I go live together, but she's got her plate full with stuff going on at her own house. And so we decided she was going to take a day off today and um, work on her own stuff. So I thought I'd still go live. And yeah, I'm trying to get better about giving you guys more notice for when I don't go live. And just trying to be more consistent about actually going live. So let's see here. Yeah, I agree. Mona Lisa says, I find that when I sweat a lot in exercise routine, I feel less stressed. Also, when I inhale deeply, exhaling feels like getting rid of stress. Yes, I agree completely. There's a lot of, different like mindful breathing exercises that are geared towards that. That can be really like a really powerful element to add to whatever type of exercise, that you're doing. So focusing on, breathing in, healing, restorative, like cleansing oxygen, or yeah, just kind of bringing in the good, and then exhaling everything that's ready to be released now, or exhaling the negative, and even visualizing it as a color can be an interesting practice. So kind of being mindful of, okay, well, what color am I exhaling? Is it a light gray? Is it a dark gray? Is it black? Is it purple? Is it green? And what's that about? And then also with breathing, practicing taking deeper breaths or allowing that breath to go deeper. We tend to be very shallow breathers, especially here in the United States, where I don't know, I guess kind of different forms of breathing are not really taught, or, and we just don't tend to get that much exercise on a daily basis. So focusing on bringing that air, that oxygen down into like the bases of your lungs and down to where you're also feeling your stomach rise and fall, that can help tremendously to just oxygenate your body. Let's see here. Kimberly says, I am a mess. I saw him yesterday and he waved at me. I'm still not right inside. I did look his way, but gave no reaction until I got out of sight, and then I lost control of my emotions. That's understandable. And I think great job with giving no reaction. And, I think that really kind of speaks volumes, because it's so easy to get completely knocked off balance when those types of interactions happen and we encounter like an X in the wild, it literally can feel like coming across a giant snake. And there's that moment of fight, flight, or freeze kind of a thing. And so the fact that you were able to stay emotionally neutral, keep yourself collected, and then after the situation passed, to then go and cry. Yeah, it's definitely a big step in the right direction. And it takes a little while to get regrounded. after those experiences. They can really kind of put us in a big funk. There's some different ways that you can go about processing that. I think in part it depends on kind of the thinking that tends to surface after, these encounters, in kind of coming up with ways to set yourself back on course. So, for example, um, I'm trying to think back to some of the things that I did when that happened with me, which thankfully was very few and far between, but still, if nostalgia kicked up, or if I saw him and I was kind of thought, oh, well, why, um, why wasn't I enough, or why did these things fall apart, or things were so good. There were times, especially, there were a lot of times that things were really, really good. And, uh, you know, but then telling myself, Dana, uh, this person is a part of your past, not a part of your future. There is no future with somebody that has, you know, um, pathological behavior like this. And there's no empathy and there's no remorse, and they just consume and destroy. Like, there is no relationship there. And of course, you still have feelings for this person. You have feelings for the relationship you thought you had. You have feelings for the relationship with the man that you thought he was. Like, of course, like, that relationship and that guy was awesome, but it wasn't real. Anybody would have been thrilled to pieces with the relationship you had, or the guy that he was, but that's just who he pretended to be. It wasn't real. Um, there was a gal on here. This was a while back, and it still sticks with me because I just thought it was such a powerful way to kind of shift perspective on kind of seeing a reminder or seeing our ex in the wild. And she was on a road trip with a friend getting out of town, and her ex had a very unique name. Something that obviously that being unique, you wouldn't come across very often. And so her and a friend are just driving out of town, and out in the middle of nowhere, there's this billboard. And I don't know, it was like an insurance salesman billboard. And the insurance agent had the same name as her ex. And it really rattled her, because it was, what are the odds of this, the same name? And so she was feeling so defeated, like, oh my gosh, I just can't get away from this guy. Like, there's just going to be all these reminders here. And she was feeling really down about it. And an alternate way that we began looking at it was, okay, well, that could also be a very powerful moment, because here she was, driving past, and here he was stagnant in this billboard, stuck on the side of the road, not a part of her life. And she's driving straight past it, moving forward. And so when she was able to shift her thought to that, it was like this huge release of, oh my gosh, yes, you're right. And so maybe um, kind of experimenting, I guess, with different ways that you perceive that interaction with him. So here he is kind of waving at you, and trying to either trying to rile you up, or trying to suck you back in, whatever it might be. And you were completely non-reactive. So he didn't get your attention. It rattled you because it was a scary, out of the blue experience. But how powerful for you to see, to see this toxicity, to see this, this problem for what it is. You didn't go over there. It didn't, whatever he was trying to do didn't work. So, sure. That's a really great point, Missouri Cowboy. He says, Dana, can you discuss bookending? support before and after one, or simply after one has to see the ex or sees them in a seemingly random encounter. Random encounter. Yes. So there's a concept, and I forget who came up with it, but it's fantastic. It's called bookending. And so just like two bookends, you have the books, and then you have the things that kind of keep them together. It's bookending is getting support before and ideally after um, some sort of event that is going to be incredibly stressful or traumatic for you. So an example, and this goes back to anticipating as much as we can and realizing that you matter, your mental health matters. You don't need to tough this out and to put yourself through unnecessary stress, and that there are certain things that you can do if you have to go through stressful experiences. Like, for example, if you have to go to court and uh, face your abuser, or it's divorce proceedings, or something like that, or maybe they're even dropping off your child for you have shared custody, and it causes intense uh, anxiety before or after. So the bookending process would be before that you're going to see them, to get some sort of support, either reaching out to a friend, to your therapist, to whoever, a supportive person, a life coach, whoever's on, a supportive person in your team. And then after they leave, planning to go get support as well. So again, it could be a friend, a therapist, a life coach, or doing something that supports you in afterwards. So let's take the example of court. So let's say, you speak with a friend a little bit ahead of time. You're kind of like, hey, I just need to vent, or I could just use some words of comfort. And it also helps too to let your support team know what you're needing in that moment. So I could really use some words of support, or I just need to vent. Could you just listen? Or, can you help me just breathe right now? And then afterwards, so let's say no one's available after this court appointment. Everybody's got appointments, or they're sick, or something happens. Then thinking, okay, how can I go best support myself right now? So maybe that's, taking some time for yourself, taking a bath when you get home. And it even might be, okay, I'm going to get, instead of trying to go straight back to work after this, I'm going to allow myself to take half a day off. So if you know that there are these big events coming up, maybe you're starting therapy for the first time. Maybe, it's, you have to go to court, where it's just going to really kind of, that you're anticipating the unexpected, right? You're like, I don't know how I'm going to feel after this, but there's a really solid chance I'm going to be kind of in a funk. Then try to set that day up to where you have control over just really being extra good to yourself. If you're able to take a few hours off work and watch a movie, or go for a walk, or spend time with a friend, have dinner with a friend, these kinds of things, that this is the time to really triple up on your self-care. Yeah, Mystique says, people used to tell me how lucky I was. Yeah, and that, and uh, encouragement, quote unquote, encouragement like that can feel, there's a time, especially when a person's fresh out, where that feels very invalidating, and it can really contribute to feelings of isolation, where they're like, man, I really don't feel lucky. My life is destroyed, or I really miss this person, and I miss this really abusive person. And so, oh my gosh, other people are telling me I should, that I'm so lucky. but yet I would completely go back to this person in a heartbeat. And then there's a lot of feelings of shame and guilt and confusion that tend to surface. And the reality is you feel how you feel. And the end of any relationship is there tends to be a grieving process of what you thought it was, what you thought or hoped it could be. Um, for the time you spent, for the emotions you spent, there's a lot of feelings to work through. And we all feel the way that we feel, and there's nothing wrong with that. Um, so just being extra good to yourself. And that's one of the hardest things with, I think, moving forward or leaving kind of life after an abusive relationship, I guess, is there are so many people that don't understand. And it's sort of like telling a cult member who uh, either escaped or was removed from a cult, oh, you should be so lucky. And then the reality is, well, all of their friends, all of their whole life was that cult. And now they're starting over with no education, no job skills, no money, no support system. They're terrified. They, they just found out that their whole way of thinking was incredibly distorted, and their whole way of acting was distorted. So it's completely starting over and feeling like a shell of themselves. But for those of us that are on the outside looking in, or that haven't been there in that place for a while, we can forget how emotionally raw a person is at that time, and how confusing of a time it can be. That's a really great point. Soft breezy day says, hello, everyone. Not only news can stress me out, but also movies and TV that features relationships as the main plot. Many sci-fi shows don't have nearly as much relationship focus and are a good escape. Yep, that is that's a really great point. There are a lot of relationship type movies out there, and it can feel very triggering, and it can kind of create this slippery slope to feelings of nostalgia or feelings of anger. And it can be difficult. And it can be difficult to hang out and spend time with other couples, and to even be happy for people that are, having a baby or getting married, or, kind of doing happy couple things. All of that is completely understandable. It's normal. And but it can be confusing because this stuff's not really it's not talked about. And so when we have those feelings of kind of bitterness or jadedness or anger, um, or nostalgia or hurt, it can also feed into feelings of shame, of what's wrong with me? Why do I feel this way? Oh my gosh, I should be happy for my brother, who's getting married, or my sister who's having a baby, or my best friend who's, engaged. And it can kind of make us feel like, well, gosh, I just feel like this terrible person. Um, but you're not. You're in pain, and you're grieving, and you're moving through those emotions. Tracy says, you're getting healed when you stop caring about this person. I looked at his pics last night and felt nothing. I am so much better. Yes. Yes. That is a really great feeling. Or when our thoughts about that person, we kind of just notice that they've shifted. And so if we do see their picture or come across them, the thought is, oh my gosh, back to what Mystique was talking about, when people are saying, oh gosh, you're so lucky. When we're at a certain place in our healing, we can see that and be like, man, I'm so glad I got out of that relationship when I did. But there's a time and place in healing for that realization. And that thing is, nobody else really knows where somebody is in their healing. So it can feel it can be dicey. It can be walking a tightrope with somebody who's experienced the trauma kind of for that reason. Yeah. And that can really shake up a person too. And Kimberly's saying, I have good times and bad times. I was there, I thought, until I was rattled seeing him in person. Yeah. And I think that that's understandable. Your brain is on high alert for people, places, and things that cause pain. That's how our brains are just hardwired. That's their main function, is to keep us alive and to keep us safe. So it's always going to be on high alert for things that cause us, that put us in harm's way. And so it probably will continue to catch you off guard if you do come across them. But I wouldn't let that rattle you too much. So this was the time, okay, wow, I'm shocked that I was so rattled by this, and I'm shocked that I had this emotional response. But just because you had this emotional response, it doesn't mean that that doesn't have to be a negative thing. Sometimes there's just emotions that we thought we've handled that can really come out of nowhere and surprise us. I'll share a personal example. I dated this guy when I was in my 20s, and it was a decent relationship. Everything was fine. It ended very abruptly. And then I also found out that, um, I don't know, it was just all kinds of wild. There was talk that, like, he was sleeping with his roommate, who was a guy, and there was just a lot of hurt and confusion, and it was just a very emotionally charged experience. And it just knocked me completely off base, because I just did not see that coming at all. And he moved on like it was no big deal. I don't know. Anyways, I thought I got over that. Really, I mean, I wasn't in love with him. Like, I cared about him and I enjoyed his company. I just didn't see it coming. Anyways, so I feel like I got over, like, I moved past that relationship in a few months. It was fine. It really didn't negatively impact me that much. It just caught me off guard, and was surprising and disappointing and upsetting. But anyways, fast forward like 15 or so years, he finds me on Facebook and sends me this message like, "Hey, what's up? How are you doing?" Like, we're friends, or that we're on friendly terms, when we are completely not on friendly terms. Um, and the last time I saw him, it was me yelling and screaming and wanting answers, and just, uh, and it was an explosion of, everything hit the fan. And having him message me caught me so off guard. I hadn't thought about him. If I were to see pictures, there was a neutral response logically. That, it was weird. But he messaged me, and boy, that was like, uh, poking a bee's nest. And I fired back this really, like, just message. Well, it was harsh. It cut kind of low, uh, but it was very harsh. And uh, response to him, and kind of, yeah, just being really ugly. And I was in a funk for about a week, and I was married at the time. Like, I had moved on. It was totally, I don't miss that guy. I don't miss that relationship. I'm glad it ended for multiple reasons. He was so not my kind of person. Um, and it was just really strange how much that was upsetting to me. Um, and And I had a friend who just said, it's like, sometimes these things happen and you think you've processed um, the pain and the hurt, and then you're surprised to find that there's still some there. And he was absolutely right. Like, if that guy were to message me today again, I don't think it would affect me at all. Like, at all. It was so unexpected. I became reactive. So, yeah, so I don't know if that helps. I don't know. Okay, let's see here. Mystique says, I can't wait for the day where I couldn't care less about him. Yeah, I think what can accelerate that process is the more you are happy and content and grounded and solid in your own life, just the more centered you are. And I think you'll find that kind of adding in all of these good things helps to really kind of crowd out the bad. And so when we do come across, toxic people or, what have you, it loses its appeal very, very quickly. We're like, wow, I don't want that. It's a lot easier to kind of keep an emotional even keel and to realize that we didn't really lose anything, because there is no future with people like that. We didn't lose anything. It helps so much when we like our life. It's when we're struggling to put the pieces of our life back together, that's when it can just feel so, or we're in a low place, that it can feel really hurtful, and we can tend to have very emotionally charged, very charged emotions regarding them. Does that make any sense? So there is a lot of benefit that can come from building up all of the good in your life. And it doesn't have to be major things. It can be just a bunch of little things. Taking time to make your bed in the morning and to wash your face and brush your teeth at night, and doing things that are for your highest and greatest good over the long term. Not just that immediate short-term gratification of, oh, this is how I'm going to handle stress, because that can kind of be a slippery slope. But long-term ways of not only coping, but really nourishing yourself. Let's see here. Let me scroll up a little bit. Oh, I'm so glad, Donna. She says, I love these live streams. I'm glad. And I appreciate the moderators that are here, keeping it to be a safe space, and everybody supporting each other. It's awesome. And Truth Seeker says, hoovering is just a bad salesman calling. Laugh and block. I like that. Yep. Brendan says, or asks, should one, after no contact, try to purge any and all thoughts of narcissistic parents and toxic family? Or is that self-defeating when you ruminate on them daily? That's a great question. And I would say that there's I think the path to healing lies in a middle ground between the two. So if we're trying to purge or avoid or run away from these constant thoughts about these people that have hurt us, there's a lot of suffering that will continue in our resistance, right? So in our pushing away from them, that requires a lot of energy to keep that going. Um, so it can, but then ruminating thoughts are also very draining and can really deplete a person's energy and mental health because they're not going anywhere. And so I think the middle ground with that um, might be kind of inviting these thoughts in and allowing yourself to feel them. So, and just acknowledging it's okay. I mean, really, truly, it's okay to feel how you feel. Relationships are complicated, even under the best of terms. And when they involve a person with, deeply dysfunctional behavior, that's multiply that times 100. So there's lots of emotions that are going on, and you're going to feel, a mix of that, of sad and glad and anger and rage and relief and joy and, uh, you know, all of it. So to sit with that when these thoughts do surface and to think about, okay, well, if the emotions, because the emotions that accompany the thoughts, if they're causing this emotional like reactivity within you, if you find yourself getting really upset or crying or kind of being moved to tears or whatever the reaction is, that's worth exploring because it tends to be parts of you that need attention and need healing. So, if the thought is surfacing about, if you've got a narcissistic mother and, you're continually feeling, it's not right, it's not fair. Gosh, she was such a witch and, she just didn't give me um, any of the attention or love or nurturing that I needed. And man, it just sucks. It just sucks that I didn't have a mom that, she just wasn't there for me. That's all valid. And I think we've gotten to a place in society where we're not comfortable with that level of acknowledgement. It feels like a pity party, right? So we feel like we're doing something wrong by acknowledging our hurt. But really, in reality, that's the first step kind of towards healing, is acknowledging this hurt me. This was not right. This was not okay. I really deeply wish things had been different. It sucks. Yeah. And then letting yourself feel those feelings. Yeah, it's okay. It's okay and understandable to wish that things had been different, to wish to have a mom or a dad who was there, that you were able to talk to them and that they were supportive and that you could have fun together and that, uh, they could have contributed to your growth as a human being instead of being so destructive in your life. Just acknowledging that. And when we're able, I think, to acknowledge that and get rid of these feelings of um, kind of like shame or guilt that tend to accompany acknowledging our pain, that's when it starts to release. So, and there is a shift, I would say, further down the process in healing. And everybody takes different amounts of time for this. Uh, to start consciously, and I guess you could even start doing this now. So if you find yourself feeling very consumed by anger and rage and this is not right, this is not fair, why me, these kinds of things, you can acknowledge that. But then you can also say, okay, you know what? All of that is completely valid. And I am going to feel that. Um, and I've been feeling it all day. But for right now, for the next hour or so, I'm going to take all those feelings and I'm going to set them down and I'm going to turn my attention towards whatever it might be, building up the positive in my life. Or I'm going to take all that energy from that anger and that hurt, and I'm going to channel it into something positive. You know, maybe your mom or your dad wasn't there for you, but then you're making that declaration of, but you know what? That stops here. That stops with me. I am going to be emotionally available for my kids or for my friends or for the loved ones in my life. And then just making a decision right there to shift that energy of, okay, and this is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to text a friend and just let them know, hey man, I'm so glad that you're in my life. Or, you know, calling or texting a sibling or calling a friend or, you know, just like investing that time into something positive that's for your highest and greatest good, and ideally for the highest and greatest good of others. But I will tell you, even if you just focus on for your highest and greatest good, which is a long-term thing, the natural effect of that is a spillover into being the highest and greatest good for others. Because when we start focusing on what truly is our highest and greatest good, that's what life's all about. It's about you figuring out who you are and then being that person full out. You know, like I know it sounds kind of, you know, hokey or whatever, but like there is only one you. And every single person has their own set of like skills and gifts and strengths and weaknesses. And that's what makes you an individual. And that's the purpose, is to step into that and be fully you and bring those gifts and all of that to the world. So becoming the best version of you, that's the, you know, I really think that's the main goal. So, yeah. So doing more of that. So there's people in the chat that are kind of asking for some resources or how to get a hold of me or what have you. I don't do one-on-one stuff with people, but I do have a free support group. It's on Facebook if you're interested. You can find it by searching for Thrive After Abuse, and there is the group and then there's the page. So you want to make sure to join the group, and the group has over 50,000 or so, 60,000. I'm not even sure what it is these days. There's lots of people in it. It's a very, very active group. And we work hard at keeping it as safe and supportive as we possibly can. So the wonderful part with that is you're getting that feedback and support from lots and lots and lots of people, which I think is very needed, a very needed part in healing. Gets Das asks how to even feel this thing called emotion. Great question. So if you're at a place, and I guess it would help to know if, have you ever experienced emotions? Especially, you know, well, I guess any emotions really, but anger, hurt, sadness, joy, or has this feeling of numbness always been there? If you've felt emotions before and and this feeling of numbness is a new thing, or it happened after a traumatic event and you've been feeling numb for years or even decades, then there's a couple of things that are going on. One, there could be some significant depression that's going on, so it might be worth talking to a doctor about. But also when it comes to getting re in tune with emotions, one of the I think maybe easiest or beginning points is to watch movies that tend to evoke these emotions within you. So when people are struggling with numbness, and having difficulty feeling sadness or anger, turning on a movie, watching a movie that's sad, like Schindler's List, or something that's not a love story. Trying to think of some other really sad movies. I'll have to work on coming up with a list. The movie I used to watch way back in the day was called Beaches. This is a really old movie with Barbara Hershey and Bette Midler, and it's about friendship, and a friend ends up getting cancer. So, like these kinds of movies that are tear jerkers, that you're going to start crying. More than likely, you're going to start crying in. And then going with that, it's sort of like catching a wave with surfing. When that emotional wave starts up, allowing yourself to feel that, to just surf that instead of, and it can help for maybe to watch the movie alone if you're very kind of like self-conscious of experiencing emotions in front of other people. So taking time to just allow yourself to sit there and cry and keep kind of milking that emotion to feel it deeper, deeper, deeper. And same thing with anger, watching a movie where there's some sort of, significant injustice, that something that really riles you up, and allowing yourself to feel that way, or putting on some really intense music, some just really kind of intense, like fight, we're not going to take this kind of music, and go for a run, or go for a bike ride, or go to, I don't know, punch a pillow, or scream, allowing yourself to process this. And UNA is saying, yeah, I use music for my emotions, or I use music for emotions. Yes, it's such a powerful way. So that way we don't have to, if we're already struggling with getting in tune with them, we don't have to start from like square one, or do all of the work ourselves of trying to get ourselves to be calm, or trying to get ourselves to experience sadness. Music or movies, it truly is just like catching a wave. Turning on like a guided meditation, or some sort of relaxation music, or imagery. And it's amazing how quickly we can become in sync. Like that can help to really kind of co-regulate us. That is a really great point. I'm not sure how you pronounce your name. Johnny? Yanni? I don't know. Says also, the brain cannot differentiate between emotional and physical pain. Maybe there is some strong pressure on the nerves in physical sense that makes the nerves go numb and shut down. Yeah, I'll have to look into that. That's an interesting hypothesis. Sure. Missouri Cowboy. Okay, real quick. Historia asked Dana, nice sunflowers. Did you paint them? Nope. My mom painted them for me. That was a birthday present for me. So I decided I'm going to start collecting sunflowers. So, yes. So if anybody here, yeah, feels like adding to my collection, if you're wanting to send me something, You can. My address is Dana Morningstar, P.O. Box 464, Mason, Michigan 48854. And let's see, we'll go with this question, and then we'll call it a day, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Missouri Cowboy asked, Dana, can you discuss how I'm a hero or saint signaling can be a red flag of toxic people? Yes, and this is a great question. So either way, the reality is nobody's 100% anything. And to be something like a hero or a saint is somehow to be something that's superhuman. And that's concerning right there, right? Because we're all human. We all have flaws. We all make mistakes. We all do things imperfectly. And it can be a little concerning if, because I think more often, well, I think people that go to these great lengths to be seen as a good person, you know, they're doing acts of charity, but they're filming it and they're putting on their Facebook, or you know, any good act that they're doing has to be, you know, the world has to kind of know about it. And that tends to be their own kind of subconscious working things out of justifying their not so good behavior. You know, look at Bill Cosby, I think is a great example of that. You know, but then there are other people like Mr. Rogers, who actually really was just a solid, good guy who was living his best life and wanting to bring good things into the world. But the difference is he was doing it in a very, he was living it. He was doing it in a very humble, you know, kind of day by day way, instead of, you know, Bill Cosby used to really criticize other comics for kind of, you know, their sense of humor, and it wasn't clean enough. It wasn't family friendly. It wasn't wholesome, you know, these kinds of things. But really, I mean, trying to figure out the Bill Cosbys of the world from like the Mr. Rogers of the world, that can just be an exercise in futility, frankly, because, you know, I don't know if we ever truly know another person. So I guess what I will say about that is if you're talking with somebody or you come across somebody in your daily life and there is no acknowledgement of mistakes that they've made or lessons that they've learned, that's a problem. Like, that's concerning. If everybody else, you know, if they are the perpetual victim or the perpetual rescuer, that's a problem. So, you know, these can kind of be some pointers as to, you know, if they're not even just a hero or a saint, but like a martyr, you know, there's no balance in any of those. So does that kind of address where you were hoping I would go with that? Let's see. So I guess, with that said, I'm going to stick to what I just said. We're going to wrap up, and I will see you guys tomorrow. We do the live stream tomorrow evening, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and that one runs for longer. So we normally go for about 3 hours, maybe a little bit less, but I hope to see you guys there. So, and again, the group that I mentioned is on Facebook. It's called Thrive After Abuse. And there is a page by the same name. I know that's confusing. So the group is closed, whereas the page is open. so people can see what you're posting there. So just some things to consider. Okay, guys. As far as that goes, thank you so much for all of your time. Thank you for being here and supporting each other and for your wonderful questions. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. As always, lots of love to you. You are not alone. You are not crazy, and you really can move forward and heal from this. So take care. Okay, goodbye.